The morning shift at Kepler Station began like any other day. Corporal Li Huan checked his weapon and walked to his post at the main border checkpoint. The massive space station floated quietly between human space and the rest of the galaxy. Ships came and went every hour, bringing traders, diplomats, and refugees from dozens of different worlds. Huan liked the early hours. The corridors were quieter then. Only the soft hum of air recyclers and the distant rumble of docking ships broke the silence. He had been stationed here for 2 years now. 2 years of watching aliens of every shape and size pass through the gleaming metal hallways of humanity's first major border station. The first ship of the day was already approaching. Huan could see it through the observation windows. A long gray vessel with strange curved wings. The registration showed it was Velthari, insect people fleeing some conflict in the Outer Rim. They came through often these days. Border Security Chief Park Jisoo walked up beside him. She was a stern woman with graying hair and tired eyes. She had seen more refugees than anyone else on the station. "Another Velthari ship," she said, checking her tablet. 200 passengers, all processed and cleared by Federation immigration. Should be routine. Huan nodded. The Velthari were always organized. They moved in neat lines and followed every rule exactly. Their insect bodies clicked and hummed as they walked, but they never caused trouble. The docking bay doors opened with a heavy grinding sound. Pressurized air hissed as the seal connected. Through his earpiece, Huan heard the dock controller give the all-clear. The refugees could begin disembarking. They came out in perfect formation. The Velthari stood about as tall as humans, but their bodies were covered in hard brown shells. 4 arms moved with mechanical precision. Their compound eyes reflected the station lights like tiny mirrors. Each refugee carried a single bag and moved with purpose toward the processing area. Huan watched them pass. Men, women, and children, if those terms even applied to insect people. Their faces showed no emotion that he could read. They simply walked forward in their orderly lines toward the immigration desks, where Federation officials would stamp their papers and send them on to whatever world would take them. The last Velthari refugee disappeared around the corner toward processing. The docking bay began its cleaning cycle. Automated systems sprayed disinfectant and recycled the air. In 30 minutes, another ship would dock in the same spot. Huan was about to return to his patrol route when he heard something, a soft sound barely audible over the station noise. He stopped and listened. There it was again, a small cry coming from the landing platform. "Chief Park," he called into his comm. "I think something was left behind." "Impossible," came her reply. "Velthari don't forget anything. Their manifests are always perfect." But Huan was already walking toward the sound. In the corner of the platform behind a support beam he found it, a small bundle wrapped in what looked like metallic cloth. The crying was coming from inside. He knelt down and carefully pulled back the cloth. Inside was something he had never seen before. It was small, about the size of a human baby. But instead of pink skin, it was covered in tiny blue-green scales that seemed to shift color in the light. It had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human, but the proportions were different. Longer fingers with small claws at the tips. The most striking feature was its eyes. Large, round eyes that took up nearly 1/4 of its small face. They were a deep purple color and seemed to glow with their own inner light. Right now, those eyes were squeezed shut as the creature cried with a sound like a mix between a human baby and a bird. "What is it?" Chief Park asked as she arrived at his position. "I don't know," Huan replied. "But it was left here by the Velthari ship." Park activated her scanner and pointed it at the small creature. Data scrolled across the screen. "Biological readings show it's definitely alive. Heartbeat is elevated, probably from distress. But I can't identify the species." The small creature opened its eyes and looked directly at Huan. The crying stopped for a moment. Those huge purple eyes seemed to study his face, with an intelligence that made him uncomfortable. "We need to get it to medical," Park said, "and contact the Velthari ship." Already tried, came the voice of Communications Officer Kim Dayoung over the comm system. "The Velthari ship jumped to hyperspace 10 minutes ago. They're gone." Station Commander Yoon Seok arrived with heavy footsteps. He was a large man who had served in the military for 30 years before taking this post. He looked down at the bundle in Hwan's arms with obvious annoyance. "What's the situation?" he demanded. "Unknown alien infant abandoned by Velthari refugees," Park reported. "No identification, no records. The Velthari ship has already departed." Commander Yoon's face hardened. "Probably a processing error. Some mix-up with the cargo manifests. It happens with these refugee ships." He activated his comm. "I'm calling for Federation pickup. They'll know what to do with it." The small creature began crying again. The sound echoed off the metal walls of the docking bay. Hwan found himself rocking slightly, trying to comfort it the way he had seen parents do with human babies. "Sir," he said carefully, "maybe we should keep it here until we can find out more about it." "Negative," Yoon replied firmly. "We're a border station, not an orphanage. Federation protocols are clear about unidentified biological materials found at checkpoints. It gets transferred to their custody for proper disposal." The word disposal hit Hwan like a cold wind. He looked down at the small creature in his arms. Its crying had become weaker as if it was running out of energy. The tiny chest rose and fell rapidly with each breath. "Commander," Park said, "it might just be scared and hungry. Dr. Choi could examine it properly in the medical bay." Yoon considered this for a moment. "Fine, take it to medical for basic assessment. But I want Federation pickup arranged within the hour. I won't have unauthorized aliens creating complications for this station." As they walked toward the medical bay, the small creature's cries grew quieter. Hwan noticed it seemed to respond to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. When he held it closer to his chest, it calmed slightly. The medical bay doors opened automatically as they approached. Dr. Choi Mirai looked up from her desk with curiosity. She was young for a chief medical officer, but had earned her position through skill and dedication. "What do we have here?" she asked, as Hwan carefully placed the bundle on the examination table. "Unknown alien infant found abandoned in Docking Bay 7, Park explained. "Commander wants a basic assessment before Federation pickup." Dr. Choi activated her medical scanners and began a gentle examination. The small creature watched her with those large purple eyes, but did not cry. It seemed to understand that she was trying to help. "Fascinating," she murmured as data appeared on her screens. "Definitely sentient. Brain activity shows high intelligence even at this apparent age. But I've never seen this species before." The creature's small hand reached out and grasped Hwan's finger with surprising strength. Those glowing eyes looked up at him with what seemed like trust or perhaps hope. In that moment, something changed in the sterile medical bay of Kepler Station. Something that would echo across the galaxy and challenge everything the civilized worlds thought they knew about compassion and courage. The small abandoned creature had found its way to the only species in the galaxy known for one thing above all others: humans never left anyone behind. Dr. Choi continued her examination while the small creature lay quietly on the medical table. Its breathing had become more regular, but she could see signs of malnutrition in the way its tiny ribs showed through the scaled skin. The purple eyes followed her movements with alert intelligence. "How long do you think it's been without food?" Hwan asked softly. "At least 12 hours, maybe more," Dr. Choi replied, checking her readings. "Its metabolism is faster than human baseline. It needs nutrition soon or it will start failing." The medical bay doors slid open with a sharp hiss. Everyone turned to see a tall figure entering. It was not human. The being stood nearly 7 feet tall with gray metallic skin and multiple arms that moved with mechanical precision. Its head was elongated with no visible mouth or nose, only two glowing red sensors, where eyes might be. "I am Galactic Federation Representative Vorthas," the being announced in a voice that sounded like it came from speakers rather than vocal cords. "I have come to collect the biological waste reported by Station Commander Yoon." Chief Park stepped forward. "Representative, this is not waste. It's a living sentient creature that appears to be an infant. Classification is irrelevant," Vorthas replied, moving toward the examination table. "Unregistered biological materials found at border checkpoints must be disposed of according to Federation health protocols. This prevents contamination and maintains order." The small creature began to cry again as the mechanical being approached. The sound was different now, more frightened. It seemed to sense danger in a way that made Juan's protective instincts flare. "Wait," Dr. Choi said, holding up her hand. "I need more time to complete my assessment. We don't even know what species this is." "Species identification is not required for disposal," Vorthas stated, reaching toward the creature with one of its cold metal appendages. That was when Juan moved. Without thinking, he stepped between the Federation representative and the examination table. His hand went to the small creature, and he lifted it gently against his chest. "You're safe now," he whispered in Korean. The words came naturally without conscious thought. The effect was immediate. The crying stopped. Those large purple eyes focused on Juan's face with complete attention. A tiny scaled hand reached up and touched his cheek. The creature made a soft cooing sound like contentment. "Fascinating," Dr. Choi breathed, watching her instruments. "Its stress levels just dropped to normal. Heart rate is stabilizing. It recognizes comfort behavior." Vorthas tilted its elongated head. "Corporal, you will surrender the biological material immediately. Interference with Federation protocols is a serious violation." "I'm not interfering," Juan replied, keeping his voice calm while the small creature nestled against him. "I'm just holding it while the doctor completes her examination." "The examination is complete," Vorthas declared. "Hand over the specimen." "Actually, it's not complete," Dr. Choi said, moving to her main computer terminal. "I need to run a full species analysis. That could take several hours." She began typing rapidly, accessing databases that required special clearance. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched through restricted Federation files on alien species. "There," she said after several minutes. "I found a match." The main screen displayed an image that looked remarkably similar to the creature in Juan's arms. The same blue-green scales, the same large purple eyes, the same delicate features. "Species designation Kythera," Dr. Choi read from the file. "Native to the Kepler system outer planets. Intelligence rating high. Social structure family-based. Status." She paused, and her face went pale. "Status listed as genetically inferior. Marked for peaceful relocation under Federation improvement protocols." The room fell silent, except for the soft breathing of the infant. Chief Park was the first to speak. "What does peaceful relocation mean?" Dr. Choi continued, reading, her face growing more troubled. "It means the Federation has determined that Kythera genetics are not suitable for continued development. They are being relocated to preserve galactic genetic purity." "Relocated where?" Juan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The files don't say," Dr. Choi replied quietly. "But there are no records of any Kythera colonies or settlements in Federation space." Vorthas moved closer. Its red sensors focused on the screen. "Dr. Choi, you are accessing classified materials without authorization. This is a violation of your security clearance." "I'm conducting a medical examination," she replied firmly. "I have the right to access relevant species data for treatment purposes." The Federation representative's mechanical voice took on what might have been annoyance. "The Kythera infant will be processed according to established protocols. There must Be no further delay. Juan looked down at the small creature in his arms. It had fallen asleep against his chest, tiny fingers still holding onto his uniform. The idea of handing this helpless being over to the cold, mechanical representative filled him with something he had never felt before. A deep, burning anger at the injustice of it all. The Velthari didn't abandon this baby by accident, he said suddenly. They left it here on purpose. Explain, Chief Park demanded. Think about it, Juan continued, his mind racing. The Velthari are meticulous. They never make mistakes with their manifests, but they pass through human space regularly. They know our reputation. What reputation? Vorthos asked. Juan met the representative's glowing sensors directly. We're the species that takes in strays. Everyone knows that about humans. We adopt alien pets. We rescue endangered species. We take care of things others throw away. Dr. Choi nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. The Velthari refugees must have found this baby somewhere. Maybe its family was already processed by Federation relocation, so they brought it to the one place in the galaxy where someone might actually protect it. Speculation is irrelevant, Vorthos declared. The biological material must be disposed of immediately. Its name is not biological material, Juan said firmly. This is a baby, a person. The small Kithara stirred in his arms and opened its purple eyes. It looked up at him and made a soft sound that was almost like trying to mimic human speech, like it was trying to say something back to the gentle words he had whispered. Corporal, you have 30 seconds to surrender the specimen or face charges of obstruction, Vorthos announced. Juan looked at Chief Park and saw something in her eyes he had never seen before, a hardness that spoke of decisions being made. Dr. Choi had stopped pretending to work at her computer and was watching the confrontation with growing tension. The 30 seconds stretched like hours. The small creature made another soft sound, and Juan realized something that changed everything. It was trying to copy his words. The baby was trying to say safe in Korean. These were not just animals to be disposed of. The Kithara were people, and people deserved protection. Time is expired, Vorthos announced, reaching forward with mechanical certainty. That was when Chief Park stepped forward and did something that would echo across the galaxy. She drew her sidearm and pointed it directly at the Federation representative. I think you need to leave, she said quietly. The medical bay was so quiet that Juan could hear his own heartbeat. Chief Park stood with her weapon aimed at the Federation representative while Dr. Choi backed toward her emergency communication panel. The small Kithara baby seemed to sense the tension and made soft, worried sounds against Juan's chest. Vorthos stood motionless for several seconds, its red sensors focused on the human weapon with what might have been surprise. Finally, it spoke in that mechanical voice. Chief Park, you are making a grave error. Threatening a Federation representative carries severe penalties under galactic law. I'm not threatening anyone, Park replied calmly. I'm asking you to leave while we complete our medical assessment. The baby needs treatment. The specimen requires no treatment. Only disposal. Dr. Choi activated her comm panel. Captain Bay to Medical Bay immediately. We have a situation. Vorthos turned its elongated head toward her. Dr. Choi, you are compounding your violations. This incident will be reported to Federation Command. Good, she replied. Maybe they can explain why they're so eager to murder babies. The word murder hung in the air like a physical presence. Juan felt the small creature in his arms shiver, and he gently stroked the tiny scaled head. The baby's purple eyes looked up at him with complete trust. Captain Bae Hyunwoo entered the medical bay, followed by 2 security guards. He was a steady man in his 50s who had commanded Kepler Station since its construction. His eyes took in the scene quickly. Report, he ordered. Federation representative demands we surrender an abandoned Kythera infant for disposal, Chief Park explained, without lowering her weapon. I refuse to comply. The Kythera are marked for relocation, Captain Bay said carefully. That's Federation policy. Relocation to where? Dr. Choi demanded. I've searched the databases, Captain. There are no Kythera colonies, no settlements, no records of any survivors from previous relocations. They're not being relocated. They're being eliminated. Captain Bay's face went through several expressions as he processed this information. Juan watched the older man struggle with regulations he had followed his entire career. Vorthas, the captain said finally, I need to see official documentation for the disposal of this infant. Documentation is not required for biological waste, the representative replied. But it is required for the termination of sentient life, Captain Bay countered. And Dr. Choi's scans show clear evidence of high intelligence. This baby is definitely sentient. Vorthas paused again. Its mechanical systems seemed to be processing conflicting directives. The Kythera species has been classified as genetically inferior. Individual intelligence ratings are irrelevant. Not to humans, they're not, Juan said quietly. Everyone looked at him. The small Kythera made a soft cooing sound and reached toward Captain Bay with tiny fingers. Sir, Juan continued, in the past 2 years, how many species have we helped at this station? How many refugees have we fed and sheltered and protected when no one else would take them? That's our job, Corporal, Captain Bay replied. Exactly. That's who we are. We don't abandon people just because someone else says they're inferior. The communication panel chimed with an incoming message. Dr. Choi accepted the transmission, and Engineering Officer Nam Junho's voice filled the room. Doctor, I heard you might need some specialized equipment. I've been working on feeding systems for non-human infants. Just in case. Captain Bay raised an eyebrow. Just in case of what, Nam? Well, sir, we've all heard the rumors about what happens to the refugee species that get relocated, and we've all seen how many different kinds of babies end up abandoned. At border stations. I thought maybe we should be prepared to help. The captain activated his own comm system. Communications Officer Kim report to Medical Bay. A few minutes later, Kim Da-young arrived looking nervous. She was young and had only been assigned to Kepler Station for 6 months. Kim, Captain Bay said, I want you to access the Federation, databases, and find records of successful Kythera relocations. Colonies, settlements, anything that shows these people are actually being taken care of. Kim worked at her portable terminal for nearly an hour while everyone waited. The small Kythera had fallen asleep again in Juan's arms. Even Vorthas stood silently as if waiting for some higher authority to resolve the situation. Finally, Kim looked up with tears in her eyes. Captain, I can't find any records of living Kythera anywhere in Federation space. There are deportation, orders for 17 different worlds, transportation manifests showing thousands of individuals being shipped out, but no arrival records, no colonies, no settlements, nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. 17 worlds. Dr. Choi whispered, How many people is that? Approximately 4 million individuals over the past 10 years, Kim replied, checking her numbers. Captain Bay sat down heavily in a chair. His face had gone pale. 4 million people. 4 million genetic inferiors whose removal has improved galactic stability, Vortha stated without emotion. The Federation Council voted unanimously on the improvement protocols. You mean genocide? Chief Park said. The word you're looking for is genocide. I prefer biological optimization, Vorthas replied. That was when Captain Bay stood up and made the decision that would change everything. He walked over to Juan and looked down at the sleeping Kythera baby. What's its name? He asked softly. We don't know, sir, Juan replied. Then we'll give it one. From now on, this child is under the protection of Kepler Station and the human colonial government. Officer Kim, send a message to Earth Colonial Command. I'm formally requesting asylum for one Kithara infant under human protection protocols. Vorthos made a sound like grinding metal. Captain Bay, you are violating direct Federation orders. This will not be tolerated. Good, Captain Bay replied. Kim, also send a message to every human outpost and colony in this sector. Tell them what? We've learned about the Kithara relocations. Tell them what the Federation is really doing to these people. Sir, Kim said hesitantly. That could be considered an act of rebellion. Captain Bay looked around the medical bay at his crew. Chief Park still held her weapon trained on the Federation representative. Dr. Choi was preparing medical equipment for the baby. Nam's voice came through the comm system reporting that specialized feeding formula was ready. Kim, he said finally, how many other human stations have reported finding abandoned alien infants in the past year? She checked her records. 17 stations, sir. All different species, but all marked for Federation relocation. And how many of those infants were surrendered to Federation disposal? Kim's face went pale. None, sir. Every human station requested special clearance to keep them for extended medical observation. Captain Bay smiled grimly. Then we're not starting a rebellion. We're just admitting that we've already been in one. The small Kithara stirred in Juan's arms and opened its purple eyes. It looked around at all the humans watching over it and made a sound that was unmistakably happy. Vorthos, Captain Bay said, turning to face the Federation representative. You can report to your superiors that Kepler Station formally refuses to comply with biological optimization protocols. We choose to save lives instead of ending them. This defiance will have consequences, Vorthos stated. I'm counting on it, Captain Bay replied. Now get off my station. As the Federation representative left the medical bay, Juan looked down at the baby in his arms. The small creature reached up and touched his face with one tiny scaled finger. You're safe now, he whispered again in Korean, and this time he meant it. 3 weeks had passed since Vorthos left Kepler Station. The small Kithara baby had grown noticeably under human care. Dr. Choi had named him Sol after the way his purple eyes seemed to glow like tiny stars. He was learning to eat solid foods and had begun making sounds that almost resembled human words. Juan had become Sol's unofficial guardian. The baby cried when other people held him for too long, but was always calm in Juan's arms. During off-duty hours, Juan would walk the station corridors carrying Sol and pointing out different areas while speaking softly in Korean. That's the hydroponics. Bay, he would say. And over there is where engineer Nam makes all his inventions. Sul would respond with soft cooing sounds and reach toward whatever Juan pointed at with curious purple eyes. The communication from Earth Colonial Command had finally arrived. Captain Bay read it aloud to his senior staff in the conference room while Sul played with a collection of colorful blocks that Nam had fabricated. Colonial Command recognizes the asylum request for the Kithara infant. However, they advise extreme caution regarding Federation relations. Earth cannot provide military support if the Federation chooses to enforce their biological optimization protocols. Chief Park leaned back in her chair. So we're on our own. Not exactly. Communications, Officer Kim said, looking up from her terminal. I've been monitoring chatter from other human stations. We're not the first to refuse Federation disposal orders. She activated the main screen, showing a star map of human space. 17 different stations glowed with red indicators. These are all the human installations that have reported finding abandoned alien infants in the past 6 months. And here's the interesting part. Every single one of them has refused to surrender their rescues to Federation authorities. Dr. Choi looked up from her medical reports. So there are 17 other babies like Sol scattered across human space. Actually, more than that, Kim continued. I've been in contact with the other stations. Some have multiple rescues. Station Bravo 7 has 6 different species. Station Gamma 4 has an entire family of Nelvani refugees. Captain Bay studied the star map. Show me the pattern of Federation relocation orders. Kim overlaid additional data onto the map. The correlations are disturbing, sir. Every species that humans have rescued was scheduled for biological optimization, within weeks of being found at our stations. It's not a coincidence, Juan said while Sewell grabbed his finger with both tiny hands. The refugees are bringing their children to us on purpose. They know we'll protect them. But how do they know that? Chief Park asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. Pilot Oh Soo-jin had been quietly listening from the back of the room. She was a transport pilot who ran supply missions between human stations. Because we tell them, she said simply. Everyone turned to look at her. I've been carrying more than just supplies lately, Soo-jin continued. Messages between stations, medical equipment for non-human infants, specialized food formulas, teachers and doctors sharing information about alien physiology. She stood up and moved to the star map. There's an entire network that's grown up without any official orders. Humans helping humans who are helping aliens. We've created an underground railroad and didn't even realize it. Sewell made a happy sound and clapped his tiny hands together. He had been listening to the conversation with obvious interest, even though he couldn't understand the words. Soo-jin, Captain Bay said carefully, what exactly are you transporting? Last week I carried a Jeltari infant from Station Echo 3 to New Geneva Colony. The colony has a xenobiologist who specializes in rapid growth species. Before that, I transported educational materials about Cathara development to 6 different stations. She pulled up her flight logs on the room's secondary screen. Teacher Lim Jae-hyun at Colony Frontier has established the first multi-species school in human space. Dr. Song Yuna at Medical Station Alpha has developed treatments for 18 different alien childhood diseases. Engineer Ross at Deep Space Platform 9 has invented universal baby bottles that work for any known species. Captain Bay was quiet for a long moment. Sewell had crawled over to him and was trying to climb onto his lap with determined purple eyes. How many people are involved in this network? The captain asked. Hundreds, Soo-jin replied. Maybe thousands. Every human installation that has received refugee children has started sharing information and resources. It's completely unofficial, but it's also completely effective. Dr. Choi picked up Saul and set him on the conference table where he immediately began examining her medical scanner with intense curiosity. The Federation is going to notice eventually, she said. They'll realize that their biological optimization program has a significant leak. They already have, Kim said, checking her latest intelligence reports. I'm picking up increased Federation patrol activity along human borders. And there are rumors about a special diplomatic mission being prepared. As if summoned by her words, the main communication system activated. The voice that filled the room was cold and mechanical. This is Federation Ambassador Thex Miran requesting immediate audience with Station Commander Bay. I am aboard the diplomatic vessel Concordance currently approaching your station. Captain Bay looked around at his staff. Saul had managed to activate Dr. Choi's scanner and was giggling at the pretty lights it projected. Kim, open a channel, he ordered. Channel open, sir. Ambassador Thex Miran, this is Captain Bay. You are cleared to dock at Bay 7. However, I should inform you that Kepler Station is currently under quarantine protocols due to an outbreak of Terran flu among our alien refugee population. There was a pause before the ambassador responded. Captain Bay Federation medical records show no reports of disease outbreaks at your facility. That's because we've been treating it ourselves, Captain Bay replied smoothly. Dr. Choi has developed an effective treatment protocol, but we haven't had time to file the proper reports yet. Another pause. Very well. I will dock in environmental isolation gear. This meeting will not be delayed by your medical irregularities. The channel closed, and Captain Bay looked at his staff with grim satisfaction. That gives us maybe 6 hours to prepare, he said. Prepare for what, sir? Chief Park asked. For the conversation that's going to determine whether human space remains part of the Galactic Federation, Captain Bay replied, or whether we choose a different path entirely. Sul had crawled back to Juan and was making soft sounds that almost resembled Korean words. The baby was learning fast, too fast for something that was supposed to be genetically inferior. "Sir," Juan said quietly, "what if they demand we surrender Saul and all the other children?" Captain Bay was quiet for a moment, watching the small Kithara play with complete innocence. "Then we'll remind them that humans have never been very good at following orders when those orders require us to abandon our family," he said finally. Sol looked up at the sound of the captain's voice and reached toward him with both arms. When Captain Bay picked him up, the baby made a sound that was unmistakably the word safe, spoken in careful Korean. "That's right, little one," Captain Bay said softly. "You're safe with us." Outside the conference room, viewports the lights of approaching. Federation ships could be seen against the stars. The network of human compassion was about to face its first real test. But Sol just laughed and reached toward the pretty lights, not knowing that his very existence was about to challenge everything. The galaxy thought it knew about genetic superiority and the value of life. Ambassador Thexmeran was unlike any Federation representative they had met before. Where Vorthas had been mechanical and cold, this being radiated authority and intelligence. It stood 8 feet tall with silver metallic skin that seemed to flow like liquid. Multiple arms moved with graceful precision, and its head held 3 glowing blue sensors arranged in a triangle pattern. The ambassador entered the conference room wearing full environmental protection gear despite the fabricated quarantine story. Captain Bay had arranged for Sul to be in the medical bay with Dr. Choi during the meeting, but the small Kithara's presence could still be felt throughout the station. "Captain Bay," the ambassador began, in a voice like flowing water, "I come with direct authority from the Federation High Council. Your recent actions have created significant concern among member species." "What actions would those be?" Ambassador Captain Bay replied calmly. "The systematic obstruction of biological optimization protocols across 17 human installations. The establishment of unauthorized communication networks between your colonies. The harboring of genetically inferior specimens marked for disposal." Chief Park shifted slightly in her chair but kept her expression neutral. Communications Officer Kim continued monitoring Federation ship movements on her portable display. "Ambassador," Captain Bay said carefully, "perhaps you could help me understand something. What exactly happens to species that undergo biological optimization?" The 3 blue sensors focused on him with uncomfortable intensity. "They are relocated to environments better suited to their capabilities. This removes genetic contamination from core Federation worlds and allows inferior species to live out their natural lifespans without impacting galactic development." "Relocated where?" Dr. Choi's voice came through the comm system from the medical bay. "Dr. Choi, you are not authorized to participate in this discussion," the ambassador stated. "Actually, she is," Captain Bay replied. "As Chief Medical Officer, her expertise is relevant to any discussion about biological matters. Dr. Choi, please continue." "Ambassador, I've spent 3 weeks researching Federation relocation records. I cannot find evidence of any successful colonies or settlements for relocated species. Where exactly are the Kithara being taken?" The ambassador was quiet for several moments. Its liquid silver skin seemed to ripple slightly. "Relocation details are classified for security reasons," it finally replied. "Security reasons," Chief Park said, leaning forward. "Or because there are no colonies, because relocation is just a pretty word for extermination." "Chief Park, you are making serious accusations without evidence." That was when Communications Officer Kim looked up from her display with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth Colonial Command. It's marked for immediate delivery." "Put it through," Captain Bay ordered. The voice that filled the room belonged to Colonial Governor Ryu Tae-hyung. It was a voice that carried the weight of humanity's highest authority. Captain Bay, this message is being simultaneously transmitted to every human installation in the galaxy. 3 hours ago, Earth Intelligence completed a comprehensive investigation into Federation biological optimization protocols. The ambassador's sensors flickered rapidly. Our investigation was triggered by reports from Captain Bay and 16 other station commanders regarding suspicious patterns in refugee relocations. What we discovered challenges the fundamental principles upon which the Galactic Federation was established. Captain Bay watched the ambassador carefully as Governor Ryu continued. The Federation has systematically eliminated 23 entire species over the past 50 years. Approximately 12 million sentient beings have been murdered under the pretense of genetic improvement. The Kythera are simply the most recent targets. The silence in the conference room was absolute. Furthermore, we have discovered that species are selected for elimination not based on genetic inferiority, but based on their potential threat to Federation control. The Kythera were targeted because their rapid learning ability and strong family bonds made them natural leaders among refugee populations. Ambassador Thexmiran's liquid skin had turned darker, almost black. "This is an extremely serious situation," Governor Ryu's voice continued. "The human colonial government cannot in good conscience remain part of an organization that commits genocide. Effective immediately, all human installations are directed to withdraw from Federation oversight and establish independent colonial authority." The transmission paused for a moment before continuing. "All human personnel are ordered to protect and defend any sentient beings currently under their care, regardless of Federation designation. We choose to save lives rather than participate in their destruction." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Finally, Ambassador Thexmiran spoke. "Governor Ryu has made a grave error. The Federation will not tolerate this rebellion. Military action will be taken to restore order." "What military action?" Chief Park asked. The ambassador's sensors focused on her. "The Federation maintains the largest and most advanced military force in the galaxy. Human colonies are scattered and isolated. You cannot hope to resist." That was when Captain Bay smiled. "Ambassador, you're right about one thing. Human colonies are scattered. We're everywhere. But that's not a weakness. That's our strength." He activated the main display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. Thousands of points of light indicated human installations from the galactic core to the outer rim territories. Every human station, every colony, every outpost is connected by trade routes and communication networks. We've been building relationships with dozens of species that the Federation considers inferior. We've been providing medical aid, educational support, and protection to refugees from across the galaxy. The map zoomed in to show the network of connections between human installations and alien settlements. "The Federation thinks in terms of control and hierarchy," Captain Bay continued. "Humans think in terms of family and friendship. When you threaten our family, you threaten all of us." "Doctor," Choi's voice came through the comm system again. "Ambassador, I have something to show you." The medical bay camera activated on the main screen. Dr. Choi was sitting at her desk with Sol on her lap. The small Kythera was playing with a learning tablet showing basic mathematical concepts. "This is Sol," Dr. Choi said. "He's 3 weeks old. Watch what he can do." Sol looked at the tablet screen, which showed the equation 2 + 2. He reached out with one tiny finger and touched the number 4. The screen flashed green and moved to the next problem. 3 + 5, Dr. Choi said softly. Sol studied the screen for a moment, then touched the number 8. Another green flash. "He's learning faster than human children," Dr. Choi explained. "His pattern recognition abilities are extraordinary. His capacity for language development is remarkable. And most importantly, his emotional intelligence is incredibly advanced." Sol looked directly into the camera and spoke clearly in Korean. "Hello, Ambassador. I am safe with humans." The effect on Ambassador Thexmiran was immediate. Its 3 sensors went completely dark for several seconds. When they reactivated, they glowed much brighter than before. That specimen should not be capable of such advanced development, it said in a voice that had lost its flowing quality. Saul isn't a specimen, Captain Bay replied firmly. He's a person, a child, someone who deserves the chance to grow and learn and contribute to the galaxy. The ambassador stood slowly, its liquid silver skin rippling with what might have been distress. The High Council will not accept human withdrawal from the Federation, it declared. Military intervention is inevitable. Then they'll have to fight. The entire galaxy, Captain Bay replied, because every species you've tried to eliminate has survivors. Every refugee population has been in contact with human colonies, and every one of them is ready to stand with us against Federation tyranny. As if to prove his point, Kim's communication panel began lighting up with incoming messages from across human space. Colony after colony reporting that they had been contacted by representatives of supposedly extinct species, survivors who had been hiding in remote systems waiting for someone to offer them hope. The Nelvani weren't eliminated, Kim reported, reading the messages. They've been rebuilding in the Outer Rim. The Jeltari established secret colonies in asteroid fields. The Vorthan have been living underground on dead worlds. More messages poured in. Species after species that the Federation had declared extinct were revealing themselves to human colonies. Ambassador Thexmiran watched the reports with growing alarm. Its liquid skin had turned almost completely black. This is impossible, it said. Our records show complete biological optimization. Your records show what you wanted to see, Dr. Choi replied from the medical bay. But life finds a way. Love finds a way. And hope finds a way. Sewell had crawled to the camera and pressed his tiny, scaled hand against the screen. His purple eyes looked directly at the ambassador with innocent trust. Safe, he said clearly. Family safe. That was when Admiral Shin Yurim's voice crackled through the communication system. All human stations, this is Admiral Shin aboard the battleship Incheon. We are detecting massive Federation fleet movements toward human space. All colonies are directed to prepare for defensive action. The galaxy had heard enough. The time for words was over. 18 months had passed since the Federation War began. Kepler Station had been transformed from a simple border checkpoint into the capital of free human space. The corridors that once carried only human personnel now bustled with dozens of different species. Children played in areas that had been storage bays. Gardens grew where weapons had once been stored. Juan walked through the central plaza, carrying Sol, who was now an active toddler with boundless curiosity. The small Kithara had grown rapidly under human care and could now walk and talk in 3 different languages. His purple eyes still glowed with that inner light, but now they sparkled with mischief and intelligence. Papa, look, Sewell said, pointing toward a group of Nelvani children playing with floating toys. They make things fly. They're using magnetic manipulation, Juan explained patiently. Their species can control metal objects with their minds. Sewell reached out with both hands toward the floating toys. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the toys wobbled slightly in the air. Juan stopped walking. Sewell, did you just... I try like Nelvani friends, Sol said proudly, but Papa Way is better. He grabbed Juan's hand and pulled him toward the playground, where children of 7 different species were playing together. They all called out greetings in multiple languages when they saw Sewell approach. The war had been brief, but decisive. The Sea Federation discovered that their military superiority meant nothing when their own member species began refusing to fight. The Alteran Empire withdrew support when they learned about the genocide. The Crystalline Collective severed all trade agreements. One by one, every major Federation ally abandoned them as the truth spread across the galaxy. The final battle had not been fought with weapons, but with words. When Federation Admiral Corvex demanded the surrender of human colonies, he found himself facing not just human ships but vessels from 43 different species that humanity had protected and sheltered over the years. "We stand with Earth," the Nelvani fleet commander had declared. "They saved our children when you tried to murder them." The Jeltari added their voices. "Humans gave us hope when you offered only death." Species after species had joined the coalition, until the Federation found themselves completely outnumbered and abandoned by their former allies. The war ended not with conquest, but with the complete collapse of the Federation government. Dr. Choi emerged from the medical center, pushing a hover chair containing an elderly Vorthan patriarch. The old being was one of hundreds of survivors from supposedly extinct species who had come to human space seeking reunion with their lost family members. "Any word from the Outer Rim colonies?" she asked Juan. "3 more refugee ships arrived this morning," he replied. "Engineer Nam is working overtime to expand the habitat domes." Sul had joined the other children and was attempting to teach a young crystalline how to play catch. The silicon-based life form was having trouble with the concept since it absorbed rather than threw objects. "Sol, careful with Shimmer," Dr. Choi called. "Remember what we taught you about different kinds of bodies." "I remember Aunt Mireille," Sol replied, switching to perfect Korean. "Shimmer eats with hands, not mouth, but can still play if we use metal ball." He produced a small metal sphere from his pocket and tossed it gently toward the crystalline child. Shimmer caught it and held it against its chest, where the metal was slowly absorbed. A moment later, the ball emerged from Shimmer's back and rolled toward Sol. "See, Papa," Sol said triumphantly. "All friends can play together, just need to think. Different." Captain Bay approached them wearing the new insignia of Free Space Command. Behind him walked Communications Officer Kim, who was now Director of Interspecies Relations. "Juan, I need to speak with you," Captain Bay said. "We've received a formal request from the Cathara Restoration Council." Sol perked up at the mention of his species' name. Over the past year, more Cathara survivors had been found hiding throughout the galaxy. They had established a provisional government and were working to rebuild their civilization. "What kind of request, sir?" Juan asked. "They want Sul to visit their new colony ship," Kim explained. "The Cathara Council believes he may be one of the youngest survivors of their species. They want to teach him about his heritage and culture." Juan felt a cold fear grip his heart. "Are they trying to take him away?" "No," Captain Bay said quickly. "They've made it clear that Sul belongs with his human family, but they want him to understand where he comes from." Sul had been listening to the conversation with growing excitement. "Papa, can I meet other Cathara people? Can I learn about my first family?" Juan knelt down so he was at eye level with the small boy. "Would you like that, Sol?" "Yes, but only if you come too, Papa," Sul said seriously. "Family stays together. That's human way." Dr. Choi smiled. "Actually, Sol, that's becoming the galaxy way, thanks to humans." She gestured toward the observation deck, where representatives from dozens of species were meeting to establish the new galactic cooperative. Unlike the old Federation, this organization was based on mutual aid and protection rather than hierarchy and control. "The cooperative charter is being signed tomorrow," Captain Bay announced, "and Sol has been invited to participate in the ceremony." "What would I do?" Sul asked curiously. "You would represent all the children who have been saved and protected," Kim explained. "You're the symbol of what we're trying to build. A galaxy where every child is safe and valued, regardless of what species they come from." Sul considered this seriously for a moment. Then he looked up at Juan with those glowing purple eyes. "Papa, will you help me say the right words?" "Of course I will," Juan replied, pulling Sul into a hug. "We'll practice together." The next day, the ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from over 60 species gathered in the main assembly hall of Kepler Station. Sol stood at the podium wearing a small version of formal diplomatic robes, while Juan stood beside him for support. When his turn came, Sul stepped forward and spoke clearly in 3 languages. "My name is Sul. I was lost and scared, but humans found me and kept me safe. Now I have the biggest family in the galaxy. Every person here is my family. Every child who is protected is my brother or sister." He paused and looked directly into the camera broadcasting to billions of beings across known space. "Papa Juan taught me that family means no one gets left behind. The Galactic Cooperative promises that no child will ever be abandoned again. No species will be called inferior. No family will be broken apart." Sol held up a small metal pendant that Engineer Nam had created for him. It contained metal from the hull of every ship that had participated in the resistance. "This is my promise to every child in the galaxy. You are safe now. You have family now. And we will never let anyone hurt you again." The assembly hall erupted in applause from dozens of different species. But Sul only had eyes for Juan, who was crying with pride. Later that evening, Juan sat in his quarters watching Sul sleep. The small Kythera was curled up in his bed, clutching a stuffed animal that represented each of the species living on Kepler Station. Chief Park knocked softly on the door and entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "He did well today," she said, sitting down beside Juan. "He's going to change the galaxy," Juan replied. "All these children are. They're growing up together, learning from each other. They don't see differences as threats. They see them as opportunities." Park agreed. "Sol is already picking up abilities from other species just by playing with their children. The Kythera learning adaptation combined with human emotional intelligence and alien technical skills." Sol stirred in his sleep and mumbled something in a language that sounded like a mixture of Korean and musical tones. "What language was that?" Park asked. "I think he's inventing his own," Juan said with wonder. "A language that incorporates elements from every species he's met. A truly galactic language." They sat in comfortable silence, watching over the small being who had started a revolution simply by being loved and protected. "Juan," Park said finally, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had followed Federation orders that first?" De Juan thought about the abandoned crying baby he had found in the docking bay, the frightened creature who had reached for comfort from strangers. "Sul would be dead," he said quietly. "And the galaxy would still be ruled by beings who thought genocide was an acceptable policy. Instead, we have this," Park said, gesturing toward the window where the lights of dozens of different ships could be seen. Refugees becoming immigrants, becoming citizens of something new and better. Sol opened his purple eyes and looked at them, sleepily. "Papa," he said softly, "thank you for keeping me safe." "Thank you for teaching us what family really means," Juan replied. Sol smiled and closed his eyes again. Outside the window, the first generation of truly galactic children slept peacefully under the protection of humans who had learned that the most important thing in the universe was not power or technology or genetic superiority. It was the simple courage to whisper to a frightened child in the darkness, "You're safe now."